She walked into an interview she was never meant to attend. The CEO noticed one small detail, and instead of stopping her, he asked one dangerous question. What happened next shocked everyone. Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello family, welcome to Tales by King. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. The morning inside Titan Corp felt cold and serious. Tall glass walls reflected the city skyline. The floors were polished so clean they looked like mirrors. Every sound, heels clicking, papers moving, doors opening, felt sharp and important. This was not a place for mistakes. At the center of the large conference room sat Ethan Cole, the millionaire CEO of Titan Corp. He wore a dark suit, perfectly fitted. His expression was calm, controlled, and unreadable. Ethan had built his company from nothing. Now, every decision he made carried weight. That morning, he was interviewing candidates for a senior office role. Only the most qualified applicants had been invited. Elite degrees, strong connections, perfect resumes. A tablet lay open in front of him, showing the list of names. Everything was planned. Then the door opened. A woman stepped inside quietly. She looked around for a moment, unsure. Her clothes were neat, but clearly old. Her handbag showed signs of use, carefully repaired at the corners. She held a brown file tightly to her chest. Her face carried signs of long nights and early mornings, but also quiet strength. "I'm sorry," she said softly, standing near the door. "Is this the interview room?" Ethan looked up, slightly annoyed at the interruption. "Yes," he replied. "Please come in." She walked forward slowly and sat down when he nodded. "My name is Grace Miller," she said. "I'm here for the interview." Ethan glanced at his tablet. Her name wasn't there. At that moment, the HR manager rushed past the glass wall, phone pressed to her ear, clearly dealing with an emergency. Ethan hesitated. This interview wasn't scheduled, but something made him pause. "All right," he said calmly. "Let's begin." Grace exhaled quietly, relief flashing across her face. She placed her file on the table, smoothing it with care. Before Ethan could ask the first question, Grace spoke again, honest, steady, and without shame. "I want to be clear from the start," she said. "I'm a single mother." The words landed softly, but heavily. Ethan froze for a brief second. This was not what he expected. Most people tried to impress him. They hid their struggles. They exaggerated their success. Grace did neither. She sat upright, hands folded, eyes calm. "I know this may not be the role you planned for me," she continued gently. "But I'm here because I was told to come. And because I believe honesty matters." Ethan leaned back slightly in his chair. Something about her tone made him listen. For the first time that morning, the room felt different. Quiet. Not because of fear, but because something unexpected had just walked into the wrong room. And neither of them knew yet that this mistake was about to change everything. He tapped his tablet once, then set it down. "Grace Miller," he said slowly, testing her name. "You said you're a single mother." "Yes," Grace replied. Ethan nodded once. "How old is your child?" Grace blinked, surprised by the question. She expected him to ask about school, certificates, big company names. But she answered honestly. "My son is 6, she said. "His name is Noah." Something softened for a split second in Ethan's eyes. Then the cold CEO face returned. "And why are you here?" he asked. "Not why you want to be here. Why you came today." Grace tightened her fingers around the file. "I received an email," she said. "It said I had been scheduled for an interview at 9 a.m. in this room." Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. He knew HR sometimes made mistakes. But this was a high-level interview. A mistake like this could embarrass the company. Still, he did not stop her. He kept his voice calm. "All right," he said. "Let's treat it like an interview." Grace nodded, as if she was grateful, yet determined. Ethan folded his arms. "Tell me about your work experience," he said. Grace opened her file carefully, as if it was something precious. "I've done many jobs," she began. "Not because I can't stay in one place, but because life kept forcing me to move." Ethan watched her closely. Grace continued, her voice clear. "I worked as a receptionist for a small clinic. Then the clinic closed." She paused. "After that, I took a job cleaning offices at night. Not because I wanted to, but because my son needed food, school fees, and safety." Ethan's face stayed neutral, but his eyes narrowed with focus. Grace went on. "I also learned computer basics on my phone. I practiced typing at night. I studied simple Excel videos. I did free online lessons when I could. She looked down for a second, then lifted her eyes again. I'm not pretending to be perfect, she said. But I learn fast, and I work hard. Ethan leaned forward slightly. You know this job isn't cleaning, he said. It involves planning, organizing, managing information, and handling pressure. Grace nodded immediately. I know, she said. That's why I came with my truth. I didn't come to beg. That sentence landed like a stone. Ethan's brows lifted. Many people begged him. Even rich people begged him, just with nicer words. Grace didn't. Ethan glanced at the simple file in front of her. It looked worn, like it had been opened many times. Like she had practiced, prepared, and rewritten things again and again. Ethan reached toward it. May I? He asked. Grace slid it toward him without hesitation. Inside were neatly arranged pages. Handwritten notes. Printed documents. Simple charts. A list of achievements, small but honest. Ethan scanned quickly. Then he stopped. A page titled, How I Can Add Value in 90 Days. He looked up. You wrote this? He asked. Yes, Grace said. Ethan's voice became sharper. Why would you write a 90-day plan for a job you might not even qualify for? Grace didn't flinch. Because if I walk into a room like this, she said, I have to respect my own effort. Ethan stared at her. The room felt even quieter now. Outside the glass wall, employees moved past, busy and unaware. But inside that room, something was happening. Ethan asked slowly, Do you know who I am? Grace swallowed. Yes, she admitted. You're Ethan Cole, the CEO. And you still walked in here, he asked. Grace gave a small nod. I almost turned back, she said softly, because I knew this place was not meant for someone like me. Her voice cracked just a little, but she held herself together. But then I remembered my son's face this morning, she continued. He asked me, Mom, are you going to get a better job so you won't cry at night anymore? Ethan's throat moved as he swallowed. Grace looked down for a moment, then spoke again with quiet strength. So I promised him, she said. I would try, even if I was scared. Ethan leaned back slowly. For the first time, he didn't know what to say quickly. He had interviewed many people. People with perfect suits, perfect grammar, perfect confidence. But this woman's words didn't feel rehearsed. They felt real. Then Ethan's phone buzzed. A message from HR appeared on the screen. Sir, there may have been a scheduling mix-up. Please do not proceed with the wrong candidate. Ethan looked at the message. Then he looked at Grace. Grace sat there waiting, not desperate, not loud, just holding herself together. Ethan set the phone down. He breathed in once. And then he asked a question no one expected. Grace, if I give you one chance right now to prove yourself, what would you do first? Grace blinked. Her heart started beating faster. This was it. This was the moment. And she knew her next words could change her life, or send her back to the world she was fighting to escape. She opened her mouth to answer, and the door handle suddenly turned. Someone was about to walk in. The door handle turned again. Then the door opened. A woman in a sharp blazer stepped in, breathing quickly, her phone still in her hand. It was Monica, the HR manager. She froze when she saw Grace sitting there. Her eyes widened, as if she had just seen fire. Sir, Monica started, her voice tight. I'm so sorry. There was a mix-up. She's not meant to be in this room. Grace's stomach dropped. Her hands became cold on the table. Ethan did not look at Monica immediately. He kept his eyes on Grace. Grace noticed his calm face, but she could feel the tension beneath it, like a storm waiting to decide where to fall. Monica stepped forward and lowered her voice. The board candidates are waiting in the lounge, she whispered. If they hear you're interviewing someone not on the list, it could cause issues. Grace's throat tightened. She slowly began to stand. I'm sorry, she said gently, trying to keep her voice steady. I didn't mean to waste anyone's time. She held her file close, as if it was the only thing keeping her upright. But Ethan lifted one hand. Sit, he said. The word was calm, but final. Grace paused, confused. Monica blinked. Sir. Ethan turned to Monica now. How did she get the email? He asked. Monica swallowed. I don't know, sir. It might have been a system error or... Ethan's eyes narrowed. Check it, he said. Now. Monica nodded quickly and stepped back, tapping her phone, her fingers moving fast. Grace sat down again, but her heart was pounding like a drum. Ethan looked at Grace. You were about to answer me, he said. If I give you one chance to prove yourself, What would you do first? Grace inhaled slowly. She felt fear rising in her chest, but she pushed it down. This was not the time to shake. This was the time to stand, without shouting. Grace placed her file gently on the table and opened it. She pulled out a single sheet and slid it toward Ethan. At the top it read, "The first problem I noticed today." Ethan raised an eyebrow. Grace began, her voice soft but clear. "I noticed something when I entered the building," she said. "Most of your staff at the front desk look stressed." Ethan's face stayed neutral. Grace continued, "I watched the receptionist handle 3 calls, greet visitors, sign deliveries, and answer questions at the same time." Ethan leaned forward slightly. "That's normal," he said. Grace shook her head gently. "It shouldn't be normal," she replied, "because stress causes mistakes, and mistakes cost money." Monica, still standing near the door, stopped typing and looked up. Grace pointed to her paper. "I wrote down a simple plan," she said. "A small system. Not expensive. Not complicated." Ethan's eyes moved to the sheet. Grace explained slowly, step by step. A visitor log that reduces repeated questions. A delivery schedule board. A call transfer rule so one person doesn't carry everything. 2 short breaks so they don't burn out. Ethan stared at her. Grace lifted her eyes. "I know I'm not wearing a fancy suit," she said. "I know I don't have big company names." Her voice trembled slightly, but she did not stop. "But I see problems. I think about solutions. And I care about doing things well." Ethan did not speak immediately. Grace's heart beat harder. Then Ethan asked, "And how would you implement it?" Grace swallowed, then answered with confidence that surprised even her. "I would start by speaking with the front desk staff," she said. "Not like they're machines, but like people." Ethan's eyes flickered. Grace continued, "I would ask what slows them down. Then I would test the simple system for 1 week." She paused. "If it doesn't work, we change it. If it works, we improve it." Monica's face went stiff, because she could tell Grace wasn't guessing. Grace had thought it through. Ethan looked down at the page again. Then he looked back at Grace and said something that made Grace's breath stop. "You noticed all that in less than 5 minutes." Grace nodded. "Yes," she whispered, "because I'm used to surviving. And survival teaches you to notice everything." The room became heavy with silence. Not awkward silence. Deep silence. The kind where something important is happening inside someone's heart. Then Monica's phone beeped. She looked at it and went pale. "Sir," she said quietly. "The email, it wasn't a system error." Ethan's eyes sharpened. "What do you mean?" he asked. Monica swallowed hard. It was sent intentionally." Grace's eyes widened. Ethan's voice dropped. "By who?" Monica hesitated, then spoke. "By Mr. Howard Lane, one of the board members." Grace felt her body go cold. Howard Lane? A board member? Why would a board member send her a fake interview email? Ethan's jaw tightened. Monica continued, almost whispering. "He has been pushing for his nephew to get this role," she said. "And he told us he wanted to prove a point, that people like her waste company time." Grace's eyes stung. So this was a trap, a humiliation, a cruel joke. Grace slowly stood up again, shame trying to rise like a wave. "I understand," she said, her voice small now. "I really understand. I'll go." But Ethan stood too. And when he spoke, his voice was calm, but dangerous. "No," he said. Grace looked at him, confused. Ethan picked up Grace's paper and held it in his hand like evidence. Then he looked at Monica. "Call Mr. Howard Lane," he said. Monica's mouth opened. "Sir, now." Ethan nodded once. "Now," he repeated. Grace's heart pounded. She didn't know what was happening, but she could feel it. This mistake was no longer just an accident. It had turned into something bigger, something that could expose the truth, and shock everyone in the building. Monica dialed the number with shaking fingers. The phone rang. Once. Twice. Then someone answered. And Ethan took the call. "Mr. Lane," Ethan said quietly, "we need to talk about the interview invitation you sent this morning." Grace held her breath, because she knew, whatever happened next, would decide not only her future, but also who truly had power in this company. The line stayed silent for half a second. Then a deep voice answered, smooth and careless. "Ethan," Mr. Howard Lane said, as if nothing was wrong. "What a surprise. Is everything all right?" Ethan did not raise his voice, but his calmness carried weight. "No," Ethan replied. "Everything is not all right." Grace stood beside the chair, holding her file to her chest. Her heart was beating hard, like it wanted to jump out. Monica stayed close to the door, tense, watching Ethan like he was standing near a cliff. Ethan continued, his voice steady. Why did you send an interview invitation to Grace Miller this morning? There was a small laugh on the other side of the phone. Oh, that, Mr. Lane said lightly. It was just a harmless test. A little lesson. Grace's face tightened. A lesson? Ethan's eyes hardened. A lesson for who? Ethan asked. Mr. Lane sighed like Ethan was being too serious. For the HR team, he said. For people who keep saying we need to open doors and give chances. He chuckled again. I wanted to prove a simple point, Ethan. That people with weak backgrounds waste time. That's all. Grace felt something sharp cut through her chest. Not anger first. Not even shame. It was the painful reminder of how easily some people looked down on her life. Ethan spoke again, still calm. Howard, he said, you used a human being to prove your point. Mr. Lane's voice became firmer. Come on, he said. She'll survive. People like her are used to disappointment. Grace's hands trembled slightly. But before she could speak, Ethan did something that shocked Monica. He pressed the speaker button. The call became loud in the room. And Ethan stood up. Since you are so confident, Ethan said, say it again. Monica's eyes widened. Sir, she whispered. But Ethan was already walking toward the conference room door. Grace followed, confused. Where are we going? Grace asked quietly. Ethan didn't answer immediately. He pushed the door open and stepped into the hallway. Outside, workers moved quickly. Some carried files. Some held laptops. Some turned their heads in surprise when they saw the CEO walking fast. Ethan walked with purpose, still holding the phone. Grace walked behind him, feeling small in the large building. Monica hurried after them, panic on her face. Sir, the board candidates are waiting, Monica began. Ethan cut in, without looking back. They can wait. He reached the elevator. The doors opened quickly. Ethan stepped in first. Grace stepped in after him. Monica came in last, her fingers twisting together. The elevator rose. Quiet. Cold. Grace could hear her own breathing. The phone was still on speaker. Mr. Lane's voice echoed clearly. Ethan, he said, slightly uneasy now. What are you doing? Ethan looked at the closed elevator doors. I'm coming to you, Ethan said. Grace's eyes widened. Coming to him. The elevator dinged. The doors slid open. They stepped out on the executive floor, where the boardroom was. 2 security men stood outside the large doors. Inside, Grace could hear faint voices. The board meeting was already gathering. Ethan didn't hesitate. He walked to the door and pushed it open. The boardroom fell silent immediately. Powerful men and women in expensive suits turned their heads at once. At the far end of the room sat Mr. Howard Lane, a man with gray hair and a proud face. His eyes locked onto Ethan. Then his eyes moved to Grace. And his mouth tightened, like he had swallowed something bitter. Ethan walked in, phone still in hand. The long table looked like a place where people fought with words and money. Grace felt her knees weak. She had never been in a room like this. Never. Ethan stopped in the middle of the room. Everyone stared. Ethan lifted his phone. Mr. Lane, he said into the speaker. I'm here. The board members exchanged confused looks. Mr. Lane's voice on the phone went quiet. Then Howard Lane slowly reached into his pocket and took out his own phone. He looked at the screen. He realized the call was live on speaker. His face turned stiff. Ethan looked around the table, then spoke with control. Ladies and gentlemen, Ethan said, I want you all to hear something that happened this morning. The room stayed silent. Even the air felt frozen. Ethan pointed gently toward Grace. This is Grace Miller, he said. She received an interview invitation today. She came on time. She spoke with honesty. She showed preparation. Grace's throat tightened. Every eye in the room turned to her now. She wanted to disappear, but she forced herself to stand straight. Ethan continued. The invitation was not an accident, he said. It was sent intentionally by one of you. Murmurs began. Some board members leaned forward. Some frowned. Howard Lane sat up, trying to smile. Ethan's eyes stayed on him. And on the phone, Ethan said, Mr. Lane said this. Ethan held the phone closer, so everyone could hear clearly. Mr. Lane's voice, still on speaker, came through. It was just a harmless test, a little lesson, to prove people like her waste time. Gasps rose around the table. One woman covered her mouth. A man near the end of the table shook his head slowly. Howard Lane jumped up from his chair. Ethan, he snapped, face red. This is not appropriate. You are embarrassing me in front of. Ethan raised one hand. No, Ethan said. You embarrassed yourself. Howard Lane's chest rose and fell. He pointed at Grace. You brought her in here like she matters, he said angrily. She doesn't even qualify. This is a boardroom, not a charity house. Grace flinched, like the words slapped her. For a second, her eyes filled with tears. But she wiped them quickly. Then something changed inside her. Grace stepped forward, slowly, carefully. Not with anger. Not with noise. With calm. The entire room turned toward her. Even Ethan looked at her now. Grace swallowed, then spoke in a clear voice. Sir, she said, looking directly at Howard Lane. You're right. I don't have your kind of background. Howard Lane scoffed. Grace continued. I didn't come here to take your seat. I came because I was invited. Her voice became stronger. And even if your invitation was a trap, I still used the chance to show who I am. Howard Lane laughed bitterly. And who are you? He mocked. Grace lifted her file. I'm a woman who has survived what you would not survive for 1 week, she said softly. I'm a mother who has worked nights so her child can eat. I'm a person who prepares even when nobody believes in her. The room went silent again. Grace turned to the board members. I'm sorry for walking into your world, she said respectfully. But I'm not sorry for trying. She faced Ethan now. And Mr. Cole, she added, voice shaking slightly. Thank you for listening. Grace bowed her head a little. Then she did something nobody expected. She placed her file on the boardroom table, right in the center. And she said, I won't beg for this job. But if this company is truly great, then let my work speak for me, not my past. Howard Lane's smile vanished. Because on the file, in bold letters, was a page title he could not ignore. How Titan Corp can save millions without firing anyone. The board members leaned forward. Ethan's eyes narrowed as he read the words. And in that moment, Grace's next move did what Mr. Lane never planned for. It shocked the entire boardroom. Ethan picked up the file. He flipped to the first page. The board watched him closely. Grace's heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. Ethan read silently for a moment. Then he turned a page. His expression didn't change, but his eyes became sharper. He turned another page. Then another. Finally, he looked up. How long did you work on this? He asked Grace. Grace swallowed. 3 months, she answered softly. Every night after my son slept. A board member near the end of the table shook his head slowly, impressed. 3 months, he repeated. Grace nodded. I didn't know I would ever meet you, she said. But I knew someone somewhere would eventually ask me, what can you do? So I prepared my answer. The room went even quieter. Because that was not a poor person's mindset. That was a leader's mindset. Howard Lane slammed his palm lightly on the table. This is ridiculous, he snapped. Even if she wrote it, that doesn't mean she belongs here. We have standards. Ethan turned to him slowly. Yes, Ethan replied, calm and sharp. We do. Howard Lane lifted his chin, thinking Ethan agreed with him. But Ethan continued. Our standard is not just degrees and polished accents, Ethan said. Our standard is competence, character, vision. Howard Lane's face dropped. Ethan looked around the table. I want 2 minutes, he said to the board. Let her explain the highlights. Some board members nodded immediately. Others looked curious. Howard Lane opened his mouth to protest. But the cream suit woman raised a hand. Let her speak, she said firmly. Howard Lane stiffened and sat back down, angry. Grace's legs felt weak. But she stepped forward. And when she spoke, her voice surprised even her. Clear. Simple. Strong. In the last quarter, Grace began, pointing to a page. Titan Corp spent too much on overtime because departments don't share workload properly. She paused and explained it carefully. Some teams have too much to do. Others are idle, waiting. The busy teams work late, and the company pays more. A board member leaned forward. So what's your solution? He asked. Grace nodded. A shared weekly schedule, she said. Not complicated. It shows where help is needed and where staff can support each other for a few hours. She turned another page. Also, many supplies are being reordered too early, she continued, because there is no simple tracking system. That causes waste. She lifted her eyes. A basic inventory log fixes that, she said. Even a simple barcode scan. Not expensive. Ethan watched her like he was seeing someone new. Grace continued. And about staff morale, she added. This company is powerful, but I noticed something. People here are afraid to make mistakes. Some board members shifted. Grace spoke gently. When workers fear mistakes, they hide problems, she said. And hidden problems become big problems. The room went still again. Grace ended with a calm truth. If Titan Corp wants to grow stronger, she said, it must improve systems and also protect its people. Then she stepped back. She didn't add extra drama. She didn't beg. She just let the silence hold the weight of her words. Ethan turned to the board. I want this reviewed, he said. Right now. Howard Lane laughed bitterly. You're going to let a random single mother rewrite our operations? He mocked. The cream suit woman looked at Howard Lane with cold disappointment. Howard, she said, you invited her here to disgrace her. But you may have just exposed yourself. Another board member spoke, his voice hard. You used company resources to set someone up, he said. That's abuse of power. Howard Lane's face turned red. It was a joke, he argued. A test. Ethan stepped forward. No, Ethan said, voice low. It was cruelty. Howard Lane tried to stand, but Ethan's next words stopped him. And there's something else, Ethan added. Everyone looked at him. Ethan held up his phone. I asked IT to pull the email logs while we were coming here, he said. The invitation was not the only thing you sent today, Howard. Howard Lane froze. Ethan's voice stayed steady. You also sent internal instructions to HR to push your nephew through the final stage, Ethan said. Even though he failed the first screening. Gasps filled the room. Howard Lane stammered. That's not. Ethan cut him off. It's already confirmed, Ethan said. Howard Lane's hands shook. He looked around, hoping someone would defend him. But nobody did, because the truth was now too loud. The cream suit woman spoke again. I motion that Howard Lane be suspended from board decisions pending investigation, she said. A man beside her nodded. I second that, he said. Ethan didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He only looked at Grace. Grace stood quietly, shocked. She never came here to fight. She never came to destroy anyone. But somehow, by simply being truthful and prepared, she had revealed what the company needed to see. The board voted quickly. Hands raised. One by one. Howard Lane's face turned pale as he realized. He had lost. Security stepped closer. Howard Lane's voice broke with anger and fear. You're choosing her over me? He spat at Ethan. Ethan answered with a calm finality. I'm choosing integrity, he said. Howard Lane was escorted out. The boardroom door closed behind him. The air felt lighter, but Grace still stood frozen, like she didn't know whether to breathe or cry. Ethan turned to the board. Now, he said, we return to what matters. He placed Grace's file on the table again. I want a new role created immediately, Ethan said. Operations support and efficiency. Board members looked surprised. Ethan continued. She will work directly under Monica for the first month, he said. Then she will report to me. Grace's eyes widened. Sir, her voice came out small. Ethan looked at her. You came here expecting humiliation, he said. But you gave this company value. He paused. And value deserves a seat at the table. Grace's lips trembled. Tears filled her eyes. Not because she was weak, but because she remembered the nights she cried quietly so her son wouldn't hear. She remembered the times she had been dismissed like she was nothing. And now, she was standing in a boardroom. Not as a mistake. As a decision. Grace bowed her head slightly. Thank you, she whispered. I won't waste it. Ethan nodded once. I believe you, he said. Later that evening, Grace walked out of Titan Corp with Monica. The sky outside was golden with sunset. Grace's phone buzzed. A message from her son's teacher had been sent earlier. Noah talked about you today. He said, my mom is strong. She never gives up. Grace covered her mouth. Her tears finally fell. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just real. Monica looked at her, softer now. You know, Monica said quietly. I almost sent you away. Grace nodded. I know. Monica sighed. I'm glad the door didn't close, she said. Grace looked back at the tall building behind her. Then she whispered, like a promise to herself. This is not luck. This is what happens when you prepare, even when nobody is watching. And inside Titan Corp, Ethan Cole stood alone for a moment in his office. He looked out at the city lights, and he understood a truth he had ignored for too long. A company is not truly rich because it has money. A company is truly rich when it can recognize greatness, even when greatness walks in wearing old shoes. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you find this story worth watching. If you do, Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories, like, comment, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thanks for watching.